Liz, do you consider yourself a minimalist?
No, but I've got a streak.
You do?
I got a streak.
Interesting. Well, today we are talking about, is minimalism worth it?
Let's talk about it.
Welcome to Net with Lizzy and Lissa, where we analyze hidden costs and empower you to make your own damn decisions in life. Each episode covers a different facet of life, and at the end of each episode, we each give our takes on whether we think something is net positive or net negative.
I'm Lizzy, a strategist and consultant with almost 20 years of experience in finance and investing.
And I'm Lissa, a personal finance expert and a certified financial planner. We're best friends who talk about money
and everything else.
Is minimalism worth it?
First up, running the numbers on minimalism.
A 2023 YouGov survey found that 26% of people say that they already live a minimalist lifestyle, and another 36% have considered it. So put those together, more than half the population is at least interested in minimalism.
Wow, okay. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Well, just 5 years earlier, in 2018, another survey from Civic Science showed that 65% of people had no interest in minimalism at all. So big shift.
According to Civic Science in 2021, women were more likely than men to express interest in minimalism, with the highest interest coming from adults between the ages of 35 and 54.
They're just fed up.
Yeah, fed up with stuff. Done with it.
And when it comes to actually decluttering, meaning doing a big clean out of your possessions, lower income households tend to do it less often and were the least likely to have done so in the past year. Interesting.
Well, we know there's more to life than numbers and statistics, so let's talk about it. Is minimalism worth it? I'm actually surprised I haven't stumbled on saying that yet, because it's minimalism. Minimalistic. I don't know, for some reason it feels hard to say. So what is your, view and perspective when you hear the word minimalist or minimalism? What does that come up for you? What comes up for you?
So kind of two different things. The first thing, I automatically think of it from a design perspective, since that's my background. And that can be in graphic design, interior design, architecture, art, anything, which is kind of using the fewest elements possible to express an idea or to kind of communicate your design. And the premise behind it is that things are very, very thoughtfully considered. Every detail matters. And also, like, the absence of things is also meaningful. So like in a design, white space is as much a part of the design as the things that are in it. And then the other angle is probably what's more commonly known is just having very few physical possessions. And I'm familiar with a lot of movements towards that and kind of this simple lifestyle where you're not reliant or kind of part of the same culture of capitalism, and you're content and make an effort to have very few things.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the design part of it, because the second part of what you said is what I most associate with minimalism, because the first time I started hearing about it was on YouTube. There's trends of minimalism on YouTube, and it spans from buying less things, spending less money, frugality, to giving up a lot of your worldly possessions and living in a van
For
life,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like that when I was first introduced to minimalism, that's what I associated with it. So I'm glad that there's another definition and perspective of what it can be.
Yeah, and sometimes those intersect. So taking, for example, you might see like a minimalist wardrobe or like a capsule wardrobe, which is like a cool trend to check out, where maybe you don't have very many pieces. They're simple, they're versatile, they're timeless, and they can be mixed and matched.
Like Doug Funny.
Like Doug Funny, exactly. That's who I think of. So there's that intersection where you tend to see that associate with fewer but higher quality items. And another thing that comes to mind for me is kind of thinking back to like the old days. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, we're in a very disposable culture these days where like, if something gets torn, how likely are you to sew it up?
Yeah.
Most people are going to throw it away. And I had that recently. I have a quilt that I love. I know, it was torn. Yeah. I have a quilt that I love that my dog tore a big like piece out of. And I'm like, I love this. I don't want to get rid of it. So I patched it up and I embroidered it up. And it's been making me think about like clothes, you know, things that we have that in a prior time when we didn't have the same resources, when things weren't as accessible.
Yeah.
It was more, you're going to have like one hairbrush for your life.
Yeah.
So you take care of it.
Right. Out of curiosity, how many hair brushes and combs do you have at home?
Off the top of my head, I think I have 3.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I probably have like 5.
Okay. Well, that's another example of like, maybe instead of having a wide variety of a specific item, you have one of that specific item, but it's one you really like.
Yeah.
And kind of funny from a design perspective, that actually is like something I've gone back and forth on. So I'd historically been very good at like cleaning out my wardrobe. I moved often for most of my life. And so every time I'd move, I'd purge if I didn't wear it in the past year. And I was dating someone who had like shoes
Yeah.
they had from high school. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I have a lot of stuff I got rid of that I wish I had kept.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of made a shift towards keeping more things so that I had more options, more variety.
Yeah.
And now I'm going back the opposite direction.
Yeah, I honestly think that for most people, it's going to ebb and flow. You're going to go through phases that are more minimal, not necessarily making you a minimalist, whatever, you know, however you'd identify as, but more minimal. And then other times where you're more cluttered or have more things or more items, or I think for the majority of people, it's going to be something like that. And then you have the extreme cases where people, they're minimalist, this is their lifestyle, they're fine with it, they're happy with it, boom. And then there's people who are just so cluttered and they don't mind it, or they don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah. I read an article recently, like in the past month. I want to say it was a Japanese man, hopefully I don't get this wrong, who had like 178 things. Like in his whole life, these are my 178 things. This is all that I have. And I like very deliberate in whittling that down.
Yeah.
And some people that's important to them, or
Yeah.
it makes them feel free, and other people not at all.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Japanese man, because, so I'm gonna give you some context. I spent some time in Japan, a month there, right before the pandemic hit. It was a culture shock for me in many ways, but one way was the amount of space that I had to live in. And by Japanese standards, the Airbnb that I stayed at for that month was considered huge.
Yeah.
It had a loft, it had, you know, like there was multiple spaces, but in my mind it was tiny, like tiniest apartment I've ever lived in. And it was interesting to me because I'm used to having 5 hairbrushes, but like I'm on this very quick, short work trip that I don't have time to like, you know, fill up the closets. I'm living out of a suitcase basically. So I had to get used to having smaller space and fewer items. And it was really weird, but enlightening to me as to how much clutter I tend to collect. And so the context is, you know, before that, my whole life, I've always felt like I've had cluttered spaces and lots of items. And I just told you this off camera, but like I feel like I've been the reason that a lot of my friends have little bits of clutter here and there. Like I'm a gift giver. I give many little tchotchkes. I travel and get souvenirs, and I always got to get something for people. So I feel like that over the past, since the Japan trip, it's changing how I am with items and material consumer goods.
I can understand and relate to that on the opposite of now I'm in a place, I recently moved into a new space where I had the opportunity to go through goods and things I'd had in storage that I hadn't been living with for a long time. And it's just fascinating the emotional responses you get. So I've been really trying to streamline, and I am by no means a true minimalist, but being mindful of like, do I use this? Do I need it? Or do I want it out? And if I don't, I'm putting things away. And like, if I don't want to see this, if it doesn't have a space, then let me revisit it, and maybe I don't need to keep it.
Yeah.
But I recently did that with clothes that I hadn't had like available to me in, I don't know, months. And I opened like this bag of clothes up, and I was like, I don't want it. And I got rid of all of it. I was like, I can't have this. I've been operating with like a fraction of my wardrobe for the past 6 months, and I don't want all of this stuff. So I'm starting to realize like the emotions and the weight sometimes of having things, especially for me coming in like a transitional period, things that were associated with a certain period of my life, and like, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Well, interesting. Like, I understand that, but my initial take is the opposite, is that if I were just a very practical person, then yeah, I wouldn't need anything at all. I'd need like the same outfit that I could wear every day, because who cares?
Right.
But I highly see the sentimental value in many items that I hold on to, clothes and otherwise. Clothes is tough. So like, let me tell you, in the last year, or in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, since my husband moved in with me, I cleared out I have 2 walk-in closets. They're not very big, but they're 2 walk-in closets. And before he moved in, I cleared one for him because I wanted him to feel like the space is half his. It's not like I'm just carving out a little bit. So I had to compress all my stuff into one smaller closet. And because of that, I started to kind of do the hoarder's version of a capsule wardrobe, which is like, I still have tons of clothes, but only about a quarter to a half of it is out at any given time. So every couple months, I go through everything. I put more stuff in storage. I take some stuff out, and I get rid of some stuff too. And so I have a lot of these sentimental t-shirts and things that I can't let go of, but I'm sure that like 10 years, 20 years from now, I'm going to think it's cool that I have them. From like random rec league basketball championship shirts to our friend's bachelor party, and we made a little logo for it. And so like, I have all these cool things, and like, parts of me want to get rid of them because I don't really wear them. But then parts of me know that like in the future, I'll probably reminisce in some way and it'll feel nice. And I have the space for it. So I don't know.
I'm smiling because I know I probably have all the same shirts. So
and you keep them. Okay.
I've gotten to a place, and it's hard. It's still hard for me now, where, especially if it's a gift from someone, that's the hardest thing, where I'm like, I can let this go. It was wonderful. I appreciate the thought or whatever, but I don't need to keep it to be grateful for them. And similarly, for a while, I simplified that stack of shirts and just kept a few. And then in the past couple of years, I was like, I never wear these. I don't necessarily have that same sentimental attachment of like in 20 years, or maybe I just never thought about it that way. And so I'll get rid of it. But that was kind of modeled for me growing up. I think up until a certain point, I was very cluttery, have all the stuff. And then when my stepdad came into my life, he is a super minimalist, in no way a materialistic person. Like, he could not care less about things. And so as a kid, he'd be like, throw it away. If you want another one, I'll buy it for you. And it just set this precedent for me of like, oh, if I don't use this, I don't need it. And ideally that shifts to then just not buying it in the first place, But I got very good at purging, and for the most part, being able to let go of that sentimental stuff. Not always.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a great skill to have. I had the opposite, where I don't know if it's a mix of my culture, Filipino culture, or being a child of immigrants, or just my family. It's some mix of that, where having represents success.
Sure.
Having means you are abundant, you're not gonna starve, you're not, right? And so that meant holding on to a lot of things. Lucky for me, I feel like my mom was a lot more balanced, where she finds sentimental value in things, so she kept things over the years. But when we sold our childhood home right before the pandemic also, she got rid of so many things that I kind of now wish we kept. Granted, I got to keep some of that.
Sure.
So like currently in my kitchen, if you ask me for a glass of water, I'll probably give it to you in these old Burger King plastic cups that have like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. Because we kept them from the 90s and I'm so
cool.
happy we did. And if they end up breaking someday or whatever, it is what it is. But like now as an adult, I get to enjoy these things from my childhood. So I think there's value in that, where if you're a minimalist, those are just things. Clearly, if you're a minimalist on purpose and that's your choice, you clearly don't care about those types of things. But I still find that a cost. Like it's a cost as to why I wouldn't choose to completely just throw everything away.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's interesting to examine for yourself what are your own things that are important to you. And you do have a lot of those nostalgic things that are so cool. What that brought to mind for me is like, I may not keep within reason. Like if someone gave me something, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to keep it forever. But I keep the cards people write to me. And so I have certain things that I'm like, words are meaningful to me. Like art is meaningful to me. Books. I don't get rid of books really. Even though just recently I went through all my books and I was like,
What if it's one you hated, didn't like?
So that was new for me. I recently, like just a couple weeks ago, was like organizing my bookcase and I'm like, I didn't really love this book. I didn't finish this one. This one, whatever. And I set those aside. And for the first time, I was like, I could probably donate these. But generally, I've been like, I value books kind of conceptually, so I keep them.
Yeah.
Even if I've read it, even if I may, never read it again, to me, it's like I'm honoring it by keeping it on a shelf.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Kind of strange.
Oh, I know, because like whenever I've helped you move, there's like
so many books.
So many bins of books. And those are heavy to move. But I mean, that's interesting because you're right. There are specific things that we care about. Like I still have my Nintendo 64 from being a kid, and I had all my CDs. For you youngins won't know what that is, but I had all my CDs, and then like eventually years later, or maybe like 5-6 years ago, I made an artwork piece out of it,
which is so cool. And it's awesome that you had them to do that.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, thank God I was kind of a hoarder back in the day. I never consider myself like total hoarder where things are out of control and I don't even know what's in there. But I will say I used to have such a hard time parting with things. Yeah, like it's
what that made me think of?
What?
Our pilot episode.
Oh, yeah. Tell them about it. Yeah, tell them about it. We did our birthday cards worth it.
Yeah, we did a test episode just to see how things would flow. Our birthday cards worth it. And Lisa has a hoard, not a hoard, a stockpile.
I have a stockpile of unused cards that like is my card bank to use if someone has a birthday.
Yeah.
But you are the opposite. You save cards that people write.
I say if someone writes me, like you'll write me a beautiful message and a card, I will save it. If it's just like sign your name, I probably won't save that.
But so how many do you have?
I have them from when I was a kid. I have them from my whole life. Like I keep them in like a folder. So I have some, like I can picture one right now that like my great uncle gave me for my high school graduation. My mom randomly, like I have a good number of people in my life, my closest friends and some family members who are very expressive, and words of affirmation is like my big love language. So yeah, that's something meaningful to me. And I'll look back at them occasionally and, remember the nice things people said.
So how would you feel if something happened to those things?
Okay. I have thought about this a lot recently because unfortunately, there were really extensive fires throughout Los Angeles. My house was never like in really imminent danger, but there was always the thought because I live in a big fire zone.
She was over the hill. Like had that went any further.
We had no power. it had to cross my mind. What would I take? Here's the interesting thing. Nothing. I would take my passport, my computer for convenience purposes.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Maybe pictures, although interestingly, most physical pictures that I have when I was a kid, I have a digital, like a picture of it on my phone because I like to have them.
Yeah.
So I really couldn't think of like anything that stood out as I have to keep this.
But even if you didn't, it's not something you would think to grab and keep. If it were to like burn in a fire and you lose it, would you be sad?
I mean, honest opinion and fact about me, I don't really think so.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty good with like, okay, moving on.
Yeah.
There might be a few things, but once I get to that point where we're detaching, I don't really linger on it.
So that's the key word, detaching. In my journey of not being a non-hoarder to being a non-minimalist, but going in that direction, I've learned to hold less value in material items and more in what they represent, I guess. So even if you were to take away the physical item from me, it's okay because I can still hold what it meant.
Yep.
And I think you have a lot of that. And there is a form of detachment there that, that's sort of what minimalists have to live by because they don't hold that sentimental attachment to things and items like a lot of people do. There's nothing wrong with either way. It's just there's risks with that, right? Like you hold so many things dear to you, you lose it, you're going to experience loss.
You know what though? I wonder if to some extent the opposite is also true because you have fewer things. So like what comes to mind, this is a random example, but my dad is a guitarist and he has some guitars he's had since he was like 13 years old. Now my dad is by no means a minimalist, but like think if you don't have many possessions, but because of that, the ones you have are very meaningful, hand-picked, important to you. Would that make it even harder to lose those?
Interesting. Could be.
Could be.
Could be. Unless it's just there for functional purposes.
Sure.
So I think that's kind of the assumption that I used to make about minimalists is that they just have no attachment to this table or this chair whatsoever. If they use it for its functionality to sit in, and if something happened to it, they just get another chair to replace it with.
Oh,
that's what I
interesting.
used to think, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's a spectrum.
That's so fascinating though, because that's very different than how I naturally think about it, which is more this one is like the exact one, right? Not a chair is a chair, so this one's meaningless. This is the one chair that I wanted and the only one I need.
Yeah.
And it's probably is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I think the thing that would probably bother me more than losing physical possessions would be like losing all my digital photos. And yet that's happened to me. I've had, like in the past when I was younger, I don't have any photos or that I took myself, that like very few from like college in my 20s, because they were like on laptops that died. I didn't have them backed up.
Yeah.
So I have stuff from like other people's Facebook. But I've, the whole time I lived in Spain, I don't really have any. And that's fine.
So photos mainly.
Photos kind of for the same reason of that reminder and reminiscing on the moment or the people. I find myself, I take a lot of photos and I like go back to them.
Yeah.
So that one I would be sad about for sure.
Yeah. So let's go over some of the costs of minimalism. If minimalism is something of interest to you, if you're thinking of purging things, if you're thinking of living a more minimalist lifestyle, less clutter, less things in your space, what are the costs to that?
A few come to mind off the bat. One is it's going to require a lot of discipline. Kind of by definition, discipline with your spending and just like how you're approaching the world. Discipline with what's important to you. Like, do I need that thing? I know I do. Like, I have a somewhat bad habit, not a great habit, I'll say, of like, oh, I could really use this gadget. Let me go order it on Amazon. And sometimes I use it and sometimes I don't, you know, but it's like the accessibility of it. And because I tell myself it's functional, right? And so you have to have a lot more discernment with that if you're trying to be a minimalist. Another is that you just, by definition, have less variety, whether that's in your wardrobe, in your hairbrushes, and whatever it may be. Maybe that means you're repeating outfits much more often. You know, maybe you have friends over and your, you know, plates and dishes are much more functional. You don't have like the fancy ones to bring out. Even, you know, something I think about from a minimalist point of view is decorating for the holidays. When I was living by myself, I would always, even though the holidays had been important to me growing up, I'd be like, it's just me. Why do I need to buy this stuff? It didn't seem worthwhile. And it's stuff you have to store. You only bring it out once a year. So, you know, there's things like that you're sacrificing.
Yeah. So something funny about me is, I guess I don't know. I guess I mentioned a little bit why I think I like things and having options and variety. Some of it stems from my childhood. I think as an adult, a lot of it comes from utility and convenience and the other things that I get from items. So when Alan moved in, I remember him thinking that I had so many kitchen appliances, right? Yeah. He said that when he lived in New York, he had the stove. I don't even think he had a microwave. And so, you know, I have a microwave, I have a toaster, I have a blender, I have an air fryer, what is it, the small oven? It's
convection oven?
Convection oven.
Yeah.
Like a juicer, random things.
Food
right?
processor, maybe?
Yeah, food processor.
Coffee roaster.
French press, like everything, right? And so I couldn't wrap my head around it as in like, well, what do you do for this? Like, what do you do when you make coffee? You need something to grind the coffee beans and something to press the coffee with or filter it out. And he's just like, I'll just go buy a coffee across the street. And I'm like, okay, I get that. But then for me, sometimes I do things it might not be minimalist in terms of the physical item, but because it saves money. Right. Like I'll buy this machine because now I'm not buying paninis like sandwiches from across the street because I can make my own sandwiches.
I'm going to buy paninis.
I can make my own with a panini press. What?
That's just a funny example,
but then,
yeah.
So that's one part of the story. The other part is, so last year before we got married, we had our house listed to sell. We didn't end up selling it. We're going to try again. We put it on pause because of the wedding. But in that time, we were doing open houses, but we were living in the space. So we had to keep it fairly minimal so that it looks appealing, so that on the weekends when we had people coming to check it out, or even during the week where there was a random appointment where someone wanted to check out the house, we could quickly put the thing on the counter right underneath.
Yeah,
like
make it look staged.
And so to me, we ended up living a couple months or like many months with the knives in the kitchen hidden underneath, with the drying rack underneath. And I'm like, how do people live without these things? Or like, it's so to me, I like a visually clean space, but I also don't think it's functional. And I don't know if that's just my dependence on these items.
I think
like, where
there's
do you dry your dishes?
A lot of factors there. You said that when you came and saw my place.
Like, where do you dry your dishes?
I have a very specific balance of I don't like a lot of visual clutter, and I like things to look very like curated and designed on a daily basis. So I don't have a lot of stuff out on my counter that's purely functional. At the same time, I have ADHD, and if I put something away, it's like it doesn't exist. So I was just thinking about this morning. I do have like little piles. That's like, here's my pile of stuff that I can't forget about.
Yeah.
But like drying my dishes, because it's just me, I use a dish. I wash it and I dry it.
You dry it, wipe
or
it,
I put them in the
away.
dishwasher, but that's new because
Yeah.
I haven't ever
Yeah.
had one. And I have a balance. Like I have a toaster. I take it out and put it away. And I like that. I wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from with the other limitation of minimalism is functionally you are limited, right? If you don't have a toaster because you don't want to have the item, then you can't toast anything.
Yeah. I mean, you could toast it on a pan, but then it's just going to take longer.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Or even right now, I don't have a blender. I just haven't bought one and I'm like, do I need it? But
how do you have smoothies?
I don't.
Do
exactly.
people just not drink smoothies?
I wanted to make a smoothie and I was like, well, I don't have a blender because I didn't buy one, but do I make them enough? And so I think there's also like a basic mindset shift of I'm going to account for the edge case.
Yeah.
So I'm prepared for every edge case versus I'm going to account for the majority of cases. And on the edge case, I'll go buy the coffee or I'll go do this thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a different approach.
Yeah. And I can see that. But again, like for me, I don't know, was I socialized to want more things and to kitchen appliances is a great example of just like have these things that do this one function because it brings some sort of convenience or joy in my life. But now I have a thing and clutter in my home. Luckily for me, where I live now has a lot of storage space, so we can still make it visually appealing for the most part, especially when we know we're having guests over. We can, tidy up and hide a few more things than usual. But as it stands, like, I walk into your place, I walk into all my other friends' places, and I'm like, I like this. I like that there's not a ton of clutter. It's always, my place always feels like the most cluttered. Even though it's not too bad, but
it's not.
I don't.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off though. But even for me now in my own place, I mean, I'm fairly new moving in, it is like a practice for me every day to keep it that way and not like to be tidying up and keeping it minimal. And, maybe one day that'll lapse.
Yeah.
But one thing I was thinking about knowing you, sure, I'm sure there's some element of like wanting to have things like culturally. I also think there may be something to having the option and that being freeing for you and being like some power in that. If I want to do this, I can do it.
Yeah.
I don't have to go do another thing. I don't have to count on anybody else. Oh, you need it? I got it.
Yeah.
And you have been that person.
Yeah.
The time I need a championship belt for my Halloween costume,
So
Lisa's got it.
Costumes are a different thing.
Costumes are a different thing.
Yeah, I think I lean heavily on the side of abundance. I am learning more and more, and I'm really good now at, all right, yes, I have my French press coffee maker for that edge case. I don't make it often, right? I have an espresso machine. I don't use it often, but I do go through phases where like for a whole month that I'll drink that kind of coffee. Yeah. And even though I'm only using it 1 month out of the 12, I either bought it myself or got it as a gift. I'm going to keep it. If it goes years where I'm not using it, I will actually get rid of it, give it away, donate it, sell it, throw it away, something. And I'll just, not as a punishment to myself, but I'll think in my head, like, if you really want it again, you're going to have to purchase it.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's kind of my way of purging, not just one big, spring cleaning purge, but like purging throughout my life is like, that's the criteria that I run it against. It's like, seriously, when's the last time you used this? Like shoes, I had to do that. There were so many shoes I held onto that were not comfortable for me. J's, not very comfortable for my feet for some reason. And I always held onto them for the style. And I finally got rid of a bunch like a couple years ago.
I know it's hard because I have those where I'm like, I got rid of so many things that I didn't wear them, shoes in particular. And I'm like, God, I wish I kept them.
You wish you had them, right?
Yeah, certain ones.
Yeah.
It's hard. And then I think I'm also finding my own balance of like, I might keep a few, right? But I don't have to keep everything.
Yeah.
I also don't want you to sell yourself short or like overhype it. It's not like your house is like overflowing and stuff by any means.
Yeah,
like,
it's not at all. But I will say that like even on a day-to-day basis when we don't have guests over, it's so funny because this is a side story. Alan, a couple years ago, bought a pair of On shoes. This was when On started getting really popular. And then he loved them so much. I swear by the end of the month, he had 2 more pairs. He had 3 total pairs. And I'm like, dang, they must be nice. Let me go to the On store and see what these are, what you're talking about. So then I got one. I'm like, damn, these are nice. So I ended up getting a second pair. So I have 2 pairs. He has 3. I've been rocking those 2 pairs for the last couple of years. It's not like I'm buying them all the time. So what's funny is that like I use one for running and one for hiking. He has one for everyday wear. He has one for running, and I don't know what he uses the other one for, just, extra. But because we use them for different purposes, day-to-day basis at our house, we don't put the day-to-day shoes away. So they're just all there. So it's only 2 of us, but there's going to be like 5, 6, 7 pairs there near the door.
Yeah, I got you.
And it's like, that's the kind of clutter that I just wish, from a minimalist perspective of just decluttering in general, but also decluttering visually, because there's something about a space when it's clean, decluttered. Like, how do we manage that?
So those are things that are, to me, a function of, they're a design solution. It's a function of having space. So some people don't have the physical space to contain their things. And I've been in that. I was in, when I was living at home, I couldn't put my clothes away effectively. And that creates so much stress. You have physical space, but you need some kind of solution for those where they're still readily accessible, but they're away. Yeah. That's, I think, the type of thing I've been very focused on in my apartment right now, is like everything having a deliberate spot that's where it goes, so that it's away, but still accessible. And it takes a lot of intention to do that, but it's possible. And it doesn't mean you have to get rid of those things.
Yeah. During the pandemic, I went through a phase of replacing some furniture with what I thought was good, visually pretty furniture that also was functional, like storage space. So I've bought several things that are like, you can hide a blanket in it, like a throw blanket in it, as opposed to it just laying on the couch, or like keep my yoga mat in this bench thing. Yeah. And so the problem I have is, even though the quality of the furniture I have is not bad, like some of it's from Wayfair, some of it's from Amazon, random places, but I wish that there was more functional, cool aesthetic design furniture.
For sure, without a doubt.
Affordable too, not like these $5,000
exactly
pieces of furniture.
There's definitely a gap, for sure. Or you got to start to get like super creative, and that takes a lot of effort.
Business idea for you guys. Someone do it. Like functional design, and beautifully designed furniture for minimalists. I know. There must already be something like that.
Maybe.
It doesn't pop up.
Yeah. Or like even just the style that you want. A lot of that is like ultra modern, which is not my style. So I'm like,
well, that's why I told you at the beginning, when I picture minimalism, that's what I see in my head. Because if you go down a minimalist rabbit hole on YouTube, that's what you're going to see, is that modern, sleek,
like clean, Scandinavian,
IKEA style. Like, it's nice, it's beautiful, but what if you want it to be more like mid-century modern or like something else?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because my like design aesthetic kind of interior wise is much more like, I always say like French, Parisian modern, like a lot of kind of more traditional elements, very eclectic. And one of the things I always think about is like a lot of the like pictures that are inspiring to me have like collections of things, or like a full gallery wall. And as I was designing my place now, I had that instinct, and then I was like, I'm not gonna like that in real life. It's gonna feel like too much. And so you gotta find the balance within those things. You're like, what are the elements you take and what are the ones you leave? Yeah. But yeah, most of the time it's associated with that Scandinavian, much more ultra modern, sleek kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. So last couple costs. So for someone who's considering becoming more minimalist, We talked a lot about upsides, but like costs, you said lack of variety, lack of options.
You're definitely sacrificing. Yeah, like if I'm looking here at our notes. You mentioned the items you use on a daily basis, like your Theragun, your compression boots, things like that. If you're a minimalist, like you may be choosing not to have some of those things that could have a functional value in your life, or even a non-functional value, an aesthetic value, right? Like that's another thing I think about. Not that you can't have a beautifully designed minimalistic space, but there are other values beyond function to having things, a picture, some art, something kind of silly and cute. And you may be sacrificing some of that.
Yeah. To be fair, I think I've been talking a lot about minimalism as like, as you're either cluttered or you're minimalist, but it's truly a spectrum.
Absolutely.
I think that maybe most people who consider themselves minimalist are more intentional spenders, which is a great thing in personal finance, and just very mindful about what they consume and bring into their space and bring into their life in general. So,
which can be a great quality. One more thing I want to touch on that is an area where I am not minimalistic and I need help. Digital clutter. And for me, it's specifically, I'm pretty good with like files. I'm decent with email. Photos. I have so many photos, so many where it's like, oh, let me take a selfie, and it's like 100 selfies, and then they're all similar, and I still have them from 4 years ago. Like that, and there's a lot of apps for that, but that's something that when I think about it, it gives me anxiety. And there's a cost to that. Because that's all on a cloud. There's like a real energy cost to digital clutter.
Digital clutter, maybe that's a whole
whole episode,
But what I'll say on that is there was a part of me that even before I had my own business, in my head, I would always think, if I ever have the money to hire a person, like a personal assistant, I'm going to have them organize all my MP3s, all my music. I somehow lost my MP3s. I don't know. So I had like 20,000 songs and I lost them. Somehow they didn't get uploaded to my cloud, whatever.
Girl.
But now for the pictures and videos where like it's my personal life, I actually had a virtual assistant start helping me organize an asset library because I want to use more of my photos and videos, personal photos and videos in my YouTube videos. But it's hard because there's things that have no business being in a YouTube video, let alone having a VA, virtual assistant see. So I actually have to vet it first and then send it to her. So I'm waiting for more AI tools to come out, like even just finding people's faces so that I can tag things and organize it like that. But it stresses me out too. Long story short, it stresses me out. If I have, let's say I'm in a waiting room at a doctor's office and I know I have like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before they call me in, not enough time to get anything done, not enough time to call anyone, whatever. I'll sit there on my Photos app going through to delete clutter. And sometimes I start from the most recent, sometimes I'll start from the oldest. I'll do that on a plane as well.
Yeah, I've done that because you've said it. I've done that because of you.
But it stresses me out because I don't know that I'll ever catch up. It's like I take more photos in a day than I delete. So I'm always going to have this more and more clutter.
And I've gotten worse because of what you said, an asset library. Like I'm not creating a lot of content right now, but being mindful of like having B-roll or even from a design standpoint or from an art standpoint, because I paint, I want to have references. So I take so many more photos that don't have a purpose beyond that, but where also like the nuances matter. And I
think part of the solution for both physical and digital clutter is that you organize it as you go. Maybe not every day, but every couple days, every week, rather than letting 6 months go by and you don't, because then it's just too big and gargantuan to tackle.
True.
But
very true.
It's just a little side tip, because I actually help a lot of people declutter their finances as well. So it's a lot of that. It's like if you let it get too out of control, it's going to become overwhelming. You can still break it down into smaller steps, but if you could just do it as you go, it'll save a lot of stress. Preaching to myself too when I say that. All right. 20 cents?
20 cents.
20 cents is the segment of the show where both Lizzy and myself, Lissa, each get 60 seconds to give our 2 cents on today's topic, whether it's a net positive or net negative for minimalism. Where does 20 cents come from?
You get the opinion of 2 dimes, y'all.
2 dimes.
2 dimes.
I wonder if people understand that yet.
I don't know. We'll see.
All right. 60 seconds on the clock. You're up first, Liz. Is minimalism worth it?
As I have established, I wouldn't in no way consider myself a minimalist. But I think I am definitely drawn in that direction. And increasingly so as I get older, as I figure myself out. So I'm going to say yes with that caveat. I think it's something that I want to continue to aspire more to, both from a purging standpoint and a spending standpoint, and that kind of intentionality. And we didn't exactly say this, but I also think to me there's an element of like figuring yourself out and what actually matters to you. And that's, I think, where I'm at, is like, what are the things I really need? What do I need to keep? What can I detach from? So yeah, for me, I'll say it's a net positive.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Lise?
Before your answer, I was going to go net negative. I think after your answer, I'm going to go net positive.
Oh.
And for, I guess, similar to you, I feel like that's what I want to move towards. I think you're already good at it. And even me, like I've learned a lot over the years of being more intentional with what I bring into my space and what I allow into my space. I don't think at any point in my life in the foreseeable future, anyone is going to ever look at me and think I'm a minimalist. But I think the principles around it, I am fully on board with. So that's why I think net positive.
I like that. I think that's important to point out that this is even within yourself a spectrum, and it may be something you aspire to or can move towards, or, you know, grab a little bit of that in your life. And it's going to look different for you than it is for anyone else.
Yeah, and I don't need the label minimalist
Facts.
at all. I don't need anyone even to think it or whatever, or perceive me as a minimalist.
It's just
principles.
Building those principles into your life a little more.
Yeah.
I like that.
Interesting. Well, this is what we think right now at this moment in time. Both Liz and I are net positive for minimalism. I didn't know that's what was going to happen.
I didn't either.
Episode.
Yeah.
Well, no one can make that decision but you. So what do you think? Is minimalism worth it?
Hit us up. Let us know what you think. DM us on Instagram at NetNetPodcast or email us at hi@netnetpodcast.com. And if you want to follow us individually, here's where you can find us.
I'm at Wealth for Women of Color on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
And I'm at live_well_Lizzy on Instagram and TikTok.
All references, statistics, and resources mentioned can be found in our show notes. This podcast is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be constituted as financial advice. Remember to always do your own research, consult a professional as needed, and feel empowered to make your own damn decisions. I think that's 1 year of episodes. I think this is 52.
Hell yeah!
Yeah.
Let's go!
Let's go.